the Woodpreneur Podcast, where sawmill owners and lumber entrepreneurs grow their businesses. Every week, real stories from the timber industry, whether you're starting small or running a big operation. Subscribe for real stories and insights from the industry.
Hi, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Woodpreneur Podcast. I'm your new host, Jennifer Alger, and today we have with us my longtime friend, Danny Torres with Deadwood Revival Designs. Hi, Danny.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hey, so Danny, you have been on the Woodpreneur Podcast when it was called other things, Acres of Timber. I feel like we were on maybe in 2017, again in 2021. You guys can look that up in Spotify and search or wherever you listen to podcasts and hear some of his other podcasts from when he's been on the show back when Steve was hosting it. And I know some of the things you talked about were like some of your success. Like when you started, you were not full time. What were you doing at the time when you first started your business?
When I started the business
Your day job, you were.
Yeah, I was still a firefighter. I was still a firefighter. So I was a wildland firefighter for the U.S. Forest Service when the idea struck. But in the transition from the moment that we formalized the business, there's been a handful of jobs that I held in the transition of going full time. But while in firefighter, then tree services, then a little bit of construction, and then what you see here now.
Here you are. Yeah.
All the way.
I know. So in that first podcast, you weren't full time. In the second one, you made a statement. If you're going to take over an island, first thing you do is get to the island. On the boat. So you were all in at this point. There is no going back. How did that feel?
Gosh, you have to everything starts with a decision. Everything starts with a decision. And you have to decide that you will make this work no matter what. And I do stand behind that, because what happens is life can be really distracting. And if you have 3 or 4 other plans that you're carrying in the background, that maybe if this doesn't work, I have this ability, or even if you're entertaining those, what I've learned for myself is, now I'm not fully focused on what I have here now. And the moment that I hit some form of difficulty or challenge, guess what I'm thinking about? That out route that I have, that other plan, rather than saying like, it will go down in this ship if it's going to go down at all.
It's not. It's already down.
So it's actually really liberating to have a mindset around, when I arrive somewhere, I burn those boats. This is going to work, or it's going to work. I'm not going to allow any other outcome but making this work.
I love that. So we met, you've progressed quite a bit. We met actually after your first, does this look familiar?
Yeah.
So we're repping for Granberg. This was, we had just started a nonprofit, Urban Salvage and Reclaimed Woods, Inc. We had those t-shirts. We did this big event, invited you. We wanted to bring everybody in. We had all the sawmills there, Wood-Mizer, Granberg. We had kiln representatives there for RF kiln technology, Byron from Nile and Wood-Mizer. And then we had some other vacuum kiln there. We had Bailey's there. So we had all these different representations there, trying to bring all the summit of urban wood together, really trying to sell the concept of collaborative competition. And you were an early adopter to that. You bought it hook, line, and sinker, not just trying to keep all your competition, at bay and make sure you're better than them. You bought into the partnership of that. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, why did you buy into that concept? And I don't think we were teaching you anything new. I think you already had this and just went, oh, these are my people, because we were saying the same thing. So tell me about that.
Well, I subscribe to the belief that the rising tide raises all ships. And so there's a couple of ways in my journey and in my career that I've seen leadership and people act in positions of leadership or positions of influence. One is, I keep this information, whatever the information I have, to myself. I don't want people around me to be better, because if they become better, then they threaten my status, my position, or whatever. That is one way to look at things, certainly. And that's one way to behave in the world. Another way to look at it is, man, just be gracious and give that information out and build relationships with people. Because number one, you may put yourself out there in a way where that may not be favorable to you. at some point. Like somebody may take and not give to you or whatever. But at the end, if you work on building relationships, I can't tell you, we would not be here, number one, if it wasn't for the grace of God. And number two, if it wasn't for the grace of people that have given us a helping hand. And so I believe in helping other people because number one, you have been helped to be here too. You have been shown grace and love, and you have been given opportunities that maybe you deserve, maybe you didn't. And so if I could humble myself to that thought and see how I can help others and how I can create a collaborative approach or the team of teams and see how I can be of service to other people and give, it always comes back. It's good to do it not with the intention of, well, if I give them this, they're going to do this for me. That's already a skewed framework that may lead to disappointment. But if you just say, give, and the universe or whatever you believe in God, he will give back to me. And that has always proven true to me.
Great. Yeah, I love that. So the giving out knowledge, I know one of the things that you did, and you talked about this a little bit on your last podcast, is you were awarded a grant. And I think it was a fresh grant at the time, and you hadn't actually done what you were going to do. But one of the things that you did was you went into the urban wood industry and specifically gave them tools to be able to dry urban wood. And there really wasn't a lot of written about that at the time. So you kind of pioneered that. How did that end up working out for you? And would you do anything differently?
No, it's worked out absolutely wonderful. So when I was in the journey of trying to get to where we're going, there's always some sort of a gap in knowledge. And at some point I realized that in cutting wood, there's definitely a lot of strategy and technique to it, but that's like one part. Then you got to dry this wood successfully. And what I realize is I don't know what I'm doing. And I know that everything that we're doing afterwards in the product and the finished product realm hinges on us being able to know how to properly dry wood. So I found Frederick and North Carolina State University. So I found a kiln drying course in North Carolina and flew all the way from California to North Carolina to take this 5-day course on kiln drying. And once I did that, I realized like it was full of kiln drying operators. Jennifer, there was like 40 people there. And what those people did was dry for a living. They were in charge of kilns that were operating 80, 90, 100,000 plus board feet. And here I am with our little urban wood operation drying in a small shed. But nonetheless, what I realized after going to that course is, wow, there's so much about the structure and the science behind this that I don't know that I need to learn more of. I became friends with the professor, Frederick.
Yes.
And he's still in the Urban Wood Network, correct?
Yeah, he's on the board of directors. Yes.
Yeah. So made that relationship with Frederick and told him when this opportunity for a CAL FIRE grant presented itself, I realized that the course was really valuable, but it was catered to a little bit of a different audience. It was catered towards the audience of mass producing and mass drying timber. And there's a lot of nuance in the urban wood space and in the logs that I was working with that I didn't have all of my questions answered. So it gave me a good basis. So when there was just
from the sorry to cut you off there. Was it based
tell me more.
species? And I know I'm in the industry, so tell the listeners a little more about what it is about urban wood specifically that you had to pull out or that you really wanted to pull out for these classes or courses that you did that was different from what Frederick was teaching at the course from traditional.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So if we think about traditional timber industry, the kinds of trees, species that are being selected and kinds of trees and the manner of which they grow is very similar. It is made for production purposes, right? And they're cutting very specific sizing too, that's already predetermined. So it's like, it's already been done. Like there is a system to it and it's already been set up in a way for success. We already know we're going to lean into the species that we know are going to get the best yields. They're going to be the easiest to dry. We're going to cut. Right. So there's formulas for everything already. And what I found, and so a lot of these trees that we deal with in the urban wood industry, it's no surprise, they would not make it in traditional timber industry because the yields wouldn't be appropriate, because you're going to hit nails. The production and the rate of production is not going to be ideal for the profitability or for the kind of business that they're trying to run. So our business model being different, I realized that like the sizing that I was cutting, the styles of trees that I was cutting, the ways in which they grew and what we were doing with it at the end was completely different. And oftentimes, if I followed the very exact same formula that was guided towards dimensional or 8-quarter material or dimensional material for framing, it just wasn't, I wasn't getting the full result. It could get me partly there, but not full.
Right. And I know some of the reasons for that, you'd mentioned the way the trees grow. Urban wood does not, in many cases, especially for us out here on the West Coast, urban wood producers out here on the West Coast, it does not grow to where it can ever be a select, according to NHLA grades. It never grows in such a way that it can hit those. And it's a great piece of wood, nothing wrong with it, but it didn't grow long enough to hit that, to hit those. But also species. I mean, when you first started talking about that, I was so excited because, oh my gosh, white oak, California white oak, Quercus lobata does not grow the same as Eastern white oak. What did you discover during your education and courses that you taught on that for species variation from West Coast hardwoods to Eastern or traditionally harvested woods?
So the Quercus lobata, I deal with the Quercus lobata and the agrifolia a lot here on the West Coast. And a lot of times you'll see that some people may say, this is why I love John Mahoney. This is a sidebar, but Street Tree Revival, the folks at Street Tree, because they have the abundance of species that they can use and actually pull from, they are more open to seeing species that oftentimes we would dismiss, even in the urban wood industry. We would say, oh, that's not going to make good. And they're willing to give it a shot. And so what we learned is that oftentimes where I was coming from in the urban wood industry is like, we want to get this stuff out to market. And so we were kind of rushing things a lot of times where there is such a specific process. And we're, in the urban wood industry, what I love about it is, number one, in a way, we're pioneering. We're very resourceful. With very little resources, we can do a lot. And a lot of times, whether we don't have that $100,000 tool or whatever, we will make do with what we have until we get to the next level. So just that level of resourcefulness that's in this industry. But what you find when you go to a course like that is like, wow, there's a lot of processes. For example, just anything from the stacking, stickering, air drying under shade. If you go to any urban wood yard or the majority of urban wood yards, including ours, by the way, our stuff is mostly in the sun.
Yeah.
It's the logs are sitting in the sun. Once they get cut, the stuff is in the sun. The terrain may not be a level, beautiful concrete pad. We're not controlling for wind. We're making do with what we have. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't care about the process, but because we know how we're going to deal with the wood after. We're going to introduce things like epoxy. We're going to be able to work with this wood.
Yeah, we're going to have
Totally.
sodium grade. Yeah, if we don't have enough warehouse space to store it all inside.
Right. And so what I learned when we were going to these courses is there are 20 levels above what we are doing here that we can do in order to improve the quality of our wood. Now, for an urban wood, like a smaller company that is getting into it, that might seem like, wow, I'm never going to be able to do all these things. I don't have the resources. I don't have the space. I don't have the money. I don't have that piece of equipment. But that's not the point. When I came into it looking at, okay, I just learned 20 things that I can't do 18 of them. What are the 2 that I can do right now that maybe don't cost money, or maybe I could do my version of it?
That's a great point. Yeah.
Right? And start with those 2. And maybe that's going to improve your process, your quality, your margins, your yields a little bit more. And then you revisit that list. Okay, can I add 1 or 2 more? We made a little more money this year. Why don't we invest back into the drying operation or storage or XYZ, right? You don't have to do it all. It's not a zero-sum game. What can you do?
I love that. I love that point. What can you do? That is so important because everybody starts somewhere. I mean, you have the band Sawmills, and you've got all this technology, but you didn't start with that. You started with a chainsaw mill. Am I correct?
Granberg, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you and Lindsay Granberg were at
Right.
the Urban Lumber Summit that I mentioned earlier. So
Absolutely.
crazy.
And Granberg, Lindsay and the friends at Granberg, they became great friends and people to help give us a platform initially where we didn't have it, and just somebody that we can. Granberg is such a great company, and in this space, we have a lot of great companies like that. But what I love about them, American made, done local. If you run into an issue, if even today, if I'm running the 84-inch dual power head,
Right.
Alaskan sawmill, and I run into something not being right there, I can call Lindsay, who will put me in contact with Ben, and they will literally problem solve it for me.
Love it.
And right then in real time. And that's what makes a great company. Not only do they make a good product, they stand behind it, but also they want to see you succeed.
They do. They do. They really are great people. I'm so glad they came to that summit. And I love that it's multi-generational, that you're just staying with it. That's such a beautiful story. So since you started, part-time, then you went to, all in full-time CAL FIRE grant, and you're progressing. Deadwood Revival Designs is building. You're joining Urban Salvage Reclaimed Woods, then the Urban Wood Network, and you're networking and finding all these partners. And then a couple years ago, you had this crazy idea that you wanted to expand, and there was an acquisition involved. Tell everybody a little bit about that acquisition.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, now it's crazy. It's already been 2 years, but we bought another local company called Pacific Coast Lumber. It's a sawmill. It's been in business since 1996. And before I started Deadwood, I had met the original owner. His name was Don Seawater. And in fact, what is it? The Zeitgeist? There's a Zodiac Killer, the documentary on the Zodiac Killer. This is completely off topic.
Okay.
But
Tell me more.
you know that Netflix documentary, The Zodiac? Okay.
Yeah.
The Zodiac was the person who was involved with the Seawaters. So Don Seawater, who's the founder of Pacific Coast Lumber, he was one of the kids that the Zodiac Killer was. He had met their mother. And he used to take them out on camping trips and doing all sorts of stuff, completely unrelated. But when I saw the documentary, you will look at Don Seawaters there telling the story, and he literally met and was with this man and would go to some of the sites where the crimes were committed, all presumably lots of crazy stuff, unrelated to the great work that he's done in Pacific Coast Lumber. But just
Don Seawater, speak. We have co-spoke since the late 90s on Urban Wood. Like, he's never we have been in California, we've been in Oregon, he's been to our place, we have done so many presentations. Why didn't he ever tell me about that? Oh my goodness.
Watch the documentary on Netflix. It's on Netflix. It will blow you away because you will see him right there. He is a huge part of the documentary.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyways, unrelated, but in 1996, he started Pacific Coast Lumber.
Right.
And then it got taken over by Sean O'Brien. And at some point, Sean was recently, a couple years ago, he was wanting to transition into something different. Like him and Dana, his wife, had a new vision of what they want to do with their life and how they wanted to invest the time that they had. And they were looking to sell the company. And they're right here local. One way we could have done is let them sell it to whoever, it doesn't matter. And we'll just continue our journey. But we just saw a great opportunity. Number one is to augment what we're already doing and to be associated with a brand that's been on the Central Coast since 1996. We were able to purchase a bunch of equipment, inventory, and just a brand that's been built for a long, long time already. And there's a lot of pride in that, having that all the way from 1996 till now and something standing. It's one of the oldest urban sawmills in the state. I'm sure that you guys are up there too, maybe even predates all of that, but certainly in one of the oldest official urban sawmills.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. They are, we were doing urban wood, but we weren't branding ourselves urban wood until the late 90s. We were doing it because we were poor. It's a necessity. It wasn't my dad. He was doing it because he's making money logging in the winter in the summer. And then in the winter, he was buying urban trees. And it was just one of those things. It wasn't, it was a way to keep making money. And so we were done before the term was coined. But yeah, and Don was the first, once we decided to brand it Urban Salvage and Reclaimed Woods, I was like, hello, Don, Don, Eric Goldar, all the oldies. And I so texting Dawn as soon as this is over. And I'm like,
Please do.
what?
It's to watch this documentary too. It would be worth it.
I will. That's crazy. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but it's an opportunity to expand in the first part when we were talking about partnerships and giving and information and being willing to create and give more without wanting to receive. So when Sean O'Brien was looking for somebody to sell the company to, when you own a company, you just have a personal attachment to it. This is your baby. Like, you've sacrificed so much for it. So in selling it, you don't just want to sell it to whomever. I mean, there is an aspect of where you need to liquidate or you want to move into something else and you're just trying to sell it. But at the same time, if you can align that with somebody that you believe will carry the brand in a way that you're proud of, something that makes you feel like my work didn't just get completely destroyed.
Right.
It only now got taken to the next level. And so Sean and Dana both felt that myself and Mitch were those kind of people that they can entrust this thing that had already been entrusted to them by Don. And so, we're honored to kind of keep carrying the torch of Pacific Coast Lumber and unite it into the Deadwood brand. I mean, they run as two separate brands, and we have more plans for Pacific Coast Lumber. But right now, it's Deadwood season, but PCL is right here with us.
Great. I love that. I love that the legacy or torch, as you put it continues. That the flame is still going, and what an honor to carry that on.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Danny, what are some of the biggest, so, I mean, it's great that you were able to buy that. You're able to keep that name and really keep Urban Wood going in the San Luis Obispo area. But I know as new sawmills come to the table, new companies come in, they don't all play the same. They don't all have the same knowledge or standard that they hold themselves to.
Right.
Do you see that as a problem? And what can we as an industry do to really protect ourselves and our brands that we've worked so hard for from that?
Yeah. The urban wood space in some instances could be a little bit of the wild, wild west. And that is part of that resourcefulness that we were talking about. People are entrepreneurs and they want to get started. And the barrier to entry can sometimes be as low as buying a chainsaw mill and knowing how to operate a chainsaw and start making boards that slab that then you could just be selling to people as lumber. And there's something to that, right? That's how we started. So I don't want to ever take away from anybody that is how you started. But as you start and as you grow, you start realizing that I knew a guy, I won't even mention names, but I knew a guy that the way that he told whether wood was dry or not was by weight. So I went up to his yard, and I'm not saying that there's not something to knowing, I have managed this material before and it was extremely heavy. And now at this point, X amount of time later, I carry it and it's very light. And by that, you can deduce that clearly most of the moisture has exited and that you're okay. But if you're using that is pretty Wild Westy if you're using that as the standard, as the only way that you determine whether something is dry or wet. And so what you can run into out there is a lot of well-intentioned people or people that mean well. They're trying to get something going. They have that entrepreneurial spirit, but maybe they don't have all of the knowledge yet. Nobody has all the knowledge. And what can happen, and certainly even I'm sure that in our early days is stuff that we've put out that wasn't the best quality stuff yet because we didn't have all the information yet, right? And if you don't have all the information, as long as you're seeking to get all of as much information as you can to continue getting better. And how do you find that information? And that's where the Urban Wood Network has come in for me.
Absolutely.
Right?
And you helped even, I know we both helped with the drying workbook that Urban Wood Network was able to put out so that all the new people coming to the table do not have to learn the hard way, go to the school of hard knocks the way that we did.
Totally.
They're getting so much more information at their fingertips. So
absolutely. So there's stuff like that. Then there's being able to, so in order to get the information, you need to be passionate about getting this information because as a new business, you can make some quick money somewhere by selling these slabs or doing whatever it is. But what you have to recognize, or what I've come to recognize, is that isn't sustainable. If you want to build something that is going to take you and your family and provide everything that you've ever wanted for yourself, for your employees, for your community, you need to build it on a foundation that can stand. And a foundation that stands is a foundation of knowledge, right? You have to have knowledge and passion and actual true processes set around. So the Urban Wood Network will connect you with a lot of great people that really live and breathe this stuff. And in that spirit of camaraderie and in that spirit of sharing, you will be able to create a lot of great relationships with people who will shortcut time by telling you the mistakes or challenges they've had, so you don't have to make the same mistakes.
Yes, yes. And we absolutely love that. Not making those same mistakes, and such a wealth of knowledge there. Do you find that, well, let me switch gears here. If you could make one thing about your business just go away tomorrow, you have a magic wand, you're waving it, and this just goes away, what would that be?
Wow, I could have something about, spending time waiting for things to dry. If I could just make it all go away and they could be cut and ready, stuff inventory can be cut and ready. If we're living in a magical world where rules don't apply, that would be something great, because you have to plan so far in advance. The inventory that we have today, the 5, 6, 700,000 slabs that we have out there today, you cannot be reactive in these businesses. And that's something that I'm learning over time. At some point you're cutting, but you have to be planning the inventory for a year and a half out. Like, what kind of inventory, what species do we want, what dimensions, what sizes. And if you get too, and that's the plight of the entrepreneur. You have to be in the thing that you're doing, you're in the process, but also you have to zoom out 30,000 feet and be thinking, where are we going to be a year from now? Because if I'm enjoying the success that I'm enjoying right now, Jennifer, whatever you are enjoying right now in your business, whatever's happening is the result of the actions that you took 6 months ago, a year ago. Right. And so if we're not taking actions today that are going to take us where we want to be a year from now, and so there's a lot of planning involved in all of this, like in every aspect of it.
Yeah, looking at trends, planning your inventory, making sure you're managing everything and that you know what you have. So yeah, there's definitely a lot that goes into that. So you've come from part-time to going full-time, burning the boats, to this acquisition. Was there ever a time where you really felt like, oh gosh, what did I do? I'm ready to throw in the towel, and then had to wake yourself up and go, oh, nope. I have a vision. I have a goal. I have a dream. Did you ever reach that?
Oh man, I reach that all the time still. Yeah. And I feel like any entrepreneur that doesn't tell you that at least some doubt creeps in at some point or another may not be being super candid with you, because you will hit walls. You will hit walls at different points, right? In your career or in your journey. And some of these walls, it just feels like I'm giving everything I have and I'm still not getting the result. Because make no mistake, this is I both feel blessed and lucky to be able to do something that I love every single day. I know that it's not everybody's reality that you wake up in the morning and you get to plug into something that you really love. I know that a lot of people work out of necessity, and they may work jobs that they don't really like. And that's not lost on me, that I get to come here and be around all this beautiful wood and just do these things and create for people and walk people through a process and rescue trees. And I have all this meaning built into my life, but it's not always like that.
Right.
Sometimes in the middle of all this, you're still like, what am I doing here? Am I doing the right thing? I'm hitting the same wall. I'm stuck at this revenue point. I'm going from payroll to payroll, trying to pay the guys, all of these fees and insurance and this and the marketing and we're not getting enough leads, or the jobs aren't getting finished fast enough because we make the custom furniture. Oftentimes the transaction doesn't happen in one day, right? So now we're dealing with cash flows and quality, and now this came back because it didn't go the right way. Unexpected expenses, like a skid steer breaks down, or your truck's not working, or you're planning and you have everything kind of humming, and all of these challenges come in. And so to your question of, have I ever reached a point where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, or I want to throw in the towel? I often hit points at some point or another where I'm like, With the skills that I have and I could go get a job with none of this stress somewhere, making way more money, not having to worry about any of this stuff. When I get out of work at the end of the day, I would hang the hat up and be with my family. When I wake up in the morning, at whatever time I wake up, I'm an early riser, all the way till I'm going to sleep. This thing that I'm in right now is in my mind. It doesn't stop. It's on my mind. It's on the weekends. I was on a hike with my wife yesterday. I'm answering back to a client because we live in a fast-paced world where once somebody reaches out to you, if you don't answer back to them in a reasonable amount of time, and they've done studies to say a reasonable amount of time is an hour, they're continuing to search.
They are, and
Right.
they're going to find someone else. Yes.
Right? So like if I start making rules around the weekends are for me, or I don't answer the phone after 6 p.m., or it's too early, or whatever rules you may make to create space between you and your work, which is not a bad thing to do. But I could tell you right now that somebody's going to eat your lunch at business that doesn't care about that.
Right.
Somebody's willing to pick up that phone call, sacrifice the Sunday, do whatever, and meet with people where I may be saying, oh, I don't do anything on Sundays. And so anyways, I don't want to get too far off, but I hit those points all the time of wondering, but that is why you have to have a super ultra strong why. I have to remember why I'm doing what I'm doing, because when I hit that little moment of uncertainty, I have to reconnect to like the wonder, what we were just talking about. Not everybody gets to do what they love to do. There's meaning, all the impact we've made, the donations to the students, the grant, the courses to the industry, the relationships with people like yourself that I've created, that it is all worth it. And that if it was all easy and it was all given to me and the doors were open and the money was just flowing in like crazy, that I wouldn't value it as much as going to war for it. And you have to be willing to go to war
for it. Yes, yes. I love that. Going to war for it. That's powerful. That is what we do a lot. Danny, this is the part of the podcast where I ask you if there's anything that you have a roadblock with right now, or anything that myself or the Woodpreneur community at large could really help you with, or brainstorm. Is there anything you're going through right now that we can help with?
I was thinking about this. So what I'm trying to work on right now is transitioning from things that are one-off. We do a lot of one-off stuff, right? All these custom pieces, there's not a template for them. We're making them as we go. They have a lot of a theme, but and you can't scale one-off. You can scale it to a certain point, right? There's only so many custom tables the team can make before we cannot make any more. So much space that we have on the floor, even in 9,000 square feet, before we cannot fit and spray and work on and pour epoxy on any more. And so the idea is that's only scalable to a certain point before you're capped. And I'm trying to figure out new ways to generate revenue that don't tie up the resources so heavily. Because I do love the one-off. I think that in the one-off are the stories that we find with people where we took and rescued a tree from their yard, and a year and a half later deliver one piece or various pieces of furniture that literally bring tears to their eyes, as an example, right? And those kind of connections and that kind of story of seeing urban wood work in somebody's life is something truly, truly special. And so the connection to that is important, but figuring out how to not tie all of your resources on this thing that's only scalable to a certain point is another formula right now that we're trying to figure out.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, I have an immediate thought on that. And because looking along the same lines, and I'm working with this group right now. I can't give a lot of details on it yet, but I'll definitely be reaching out soon. We're working on coming up with designers in local areas, following that local wood, but having a few designs that are the same designs, that the wood comes from that local area, the wood is made by local makers. And so each general area would have that local maker to do it. But here's 5 designs that we have a large buyer who wants to buy. And so I'm wondering, and that would be, it would be, you would be a part of it, but it would be a slightly different brand. So I don't know if that would make sense for you, but that is one option.
Right.
Or you come up with your own, that you
I
want.
like that.
This is the Deadwood Revival Designs, whatever. And it's not as artistic. It doesn't have, it's not super custom. It's going to fit. It's that timeless classic that fits across all these styles. And so you can go on volume, and then that kind of filling that niche or filling that gap in between the bigger projects, because there is a cash flow problem. Yes, you're making a lot of money, but you've only got, whatever you charge, your 50% or whatever up front. Now you're not getting paid. And oh, shoot, this came in late. Oh, we thought we were going to deliver last week. And now you're having to stretch that your
Totally.
account. And so I almost think that, having those bread and butter pieces in that in between space could potentially help. I don't know if that was helpful or not, but
No, that's wisdom right there. That's beautiful. That's wisdom. Yeah.
all right. So Danny, people want to find Deadwood Revival Design. They want to build a table. They want to connect with you online. How do they do that?
Well, if you are on Instagram or any social media platform at Deadwood Revival Design, our website is www.deadwoodrevivaldesign.com. So no S at the end there, just design. So you can find us, you can reach out via social media, reach out. We'd love to connect with you guys, love to be part of this industry and the opportunities, and keep pushing, keep building, keep making.
Keep mentoring. I know you've mentored so many. You were mentored. You're mentoring back. I love that. Very altruistic and rising all the ships, by bringing this together. Absolutely loved it. Loved having you on the show, connecting. It's been a minute since we've had a chance to sit down and talk. We need to do so soon, because Deadwood Revival Designs is going to be doing my desk.
Yeah.
And they're going to be doing my desk. And this has been an ongoing project for a year. They're kind of waiting on me to sit down and do that design phase. But we're going to do it soon. I promise.
Oh, it's coming soon. And it's going to be worth it.
We will. I've still got it's funny story. One time before we jump off here, Danny walks into our new shop, and our new store is going, oh, wow, that's amazing. There's this fiddleback walnut here, and there's, all of these great things. And he walks into my office, and there's a gorgeous walnut conference table with the metal base. And then he turns and he looks and he sees my desk. He's like, Jenna. So I'm a procrastinator. Going to get to it. You are going to build my desk, and I am looking forward to it.
The queen of urban wood shall rule from a proper throne. Okay. So we have to have business must be conducted from a proper place. Right. It will happen.
It's going to happen. All right. Well, thank you so much, Danny. Have a great week. And
all right. Have a great week.
Thank you. Go to Woodpreneur Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe. Have a great week.
Have a good guy.
Thanks.